Hello, and everyone. Welcome to the American Family Insurance DreamBank, where we believe in the transformative power of dreams. My name is Andy, filling in for my coworker Jenna today. And on behalf of the entire team, thank you so much for taking the time to join us here. As we get started, we always like to poll our audience where you're tuning in from and encourage you to do so in the chat section if you are comfortable in doing so. Located in downtown Madison, Wisconsin. Nice and sunny today. Not quite those autumnal vibes just yet that were here a few weeks ago. So yes, enjoying the warmer weather for a little bit longer. For those of you who have attended our virtual or in-person events in the past, welcome back. And for anyone that is joining us for the first time, I'd love to take a moment or two and introduce you to DreamBank. So here at American Family Insurance, life's better when you're under a roof, because when you feel totally supported and protected, any dream is possible. And that's why we created DreamBank. It's an inspirational community destination and virtual experience that is designed to help people pursue and achieve and protect their dreams. At DreamBank, there's something for every dreamer, from weekly events to immersive signature programs, special events, and on-demand content. Our free programming and resources are designed to bring you inspiration, motivation, and support no matter your interest. And feel free to check out our upcoming virtual and in-person events at amfam.com/DreamBank and reserve your spot today. I would like to go ahead and introduce our featured speaker today, though, Sarah Tilkens. So Sarah is a passionate problem solver and certified professional coactive coach with a background in operations management. As CEO and founder of the KPI Lab, she empowers high-growth teams and individuals to achieve breakthrough outcomes through her coaching and consulting. Sarah is playful, bold, and believes that anything is possible. She challenges her clients to think differently and to achieve extraordinary results. So without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and kick it over to Sarah. Sarah, take it away.
Thank you so much, Andy. It's always fun hearing your own bio. So thank you for that moment. Okay, welcome everybody. I'm actually going to start by reading you kind of a visualization. So I want you to sink into a place with me, and then we're going to jump into the content. So I'm going to read you this. Feel free to close your eyes and come on an adventure with me. So take a deep breath and let it out. Feel the ground beneath your feet. You're at the summit of a mountain 1 year from today. The air is crisp, the view is wide, and the horizon stretches further than you've ever seen. You've made the climb. It wasn't easy. There were steep stretches, loose rocks, moments you thought you might turn back, but you didn't. You adapted, you found new routes, you pushed through, and every challenge made you stronger, more creative, and more resilient. From up here at the top of the mountain, you can see it all. The obstacles you overcame, the milestones you passed, the unexpected solutions that carried you forward. So hold on to that feeling and let it fill you up. And now I want you to rewind with me. So the summit fades and you're at the trailhead 1 year ago. The mountain looms ahead. You're not sure what's waiting for you on the path, but you check in your backpack. The tools, the lessons, the experiences you've gathered so far, they're all there. They're heavy with possibility, and you know they'll help you make the climb. And then fast forward to today. You've already begun the journey. Step after step, breath after breath, and the trail suddenly stops. And there's a massive boulder blocking your path. It's taller than you, it's wider than your arms can stretch, and the dirt is worn smooth around it, as if others before you have stood here too, wondering how to move forward. So you stand there, staring at it, and for a moment, doubt creeps in. Is this where the climb ends? Am I supposed to turn around? What should I do? But then you feel your pack against your shoulders. You remember why you started, and curiosity stirs. What if this isn't a dead end, but an opportunity? What if there's more than one way through? So you place your hands on the cool stone, you steady your breath, and determination sets in. You know the path doesn't end here. It just asks you to think differently. And that's where we begin today, with a rock in the path. So, thank you so much for starting our session like that. What I would love to do is invite you to just scan the QR code. We're going to use Slido a couple times in the session. So, grab that Slido QR code and tell me, standing in front of the boulder, hearing that reading, what is the first word or feeling that's coming up for you? Freedom. Yeah, relief, challenge, anxiety, frustration, excitement, change, doubt. And I see folks in the chat, calmness and being crushed, uncertainty, fear, overwhelm. Yeah, challenges can feel like all of these things, right? Sometimes we can approach them with a lens of curiosity. Sometimes we see them as a challenge and that energizes us. And sometimes it's really frustrating and it's really hard and it's really easy to be overwhelmed by some of those feelings. So, thank you guys. I like seeing that curiosity is kind of the leader of the pack here. So, again, today we're going to be talking about problem solving and divergent and convergent thinking. So, I'm really excited to bring this content to you. It's one of my favorite topics, and I really hope that you take a tremendous amount out of it. Andy did an amazing job introducing me, but again, my name is Sarah. I'm the CEO and founder of the KPI Lab. And I don't solve problems, I build problem solvers. So, really, I'm always looking to change the way that people think from coaching and from different tools from my experience in operations. And you'll get to hear a little bit of both of those things today. So, the rules for today, should you choose to accept them, be as present as you can. You're giving yourself this time to learn something new. Be present for it. Really take it in and make something of it. Be engaged. So, as much as you want, feel free to play with others in the chat. Feel free to ask questions. I will answer questions if they're relevant. Otherwise, at the end, we'll definitely have some time to make sure that all of your burning questions are followed up on. Be open-minded. We are playing today. We are exploring something different. Really challenge yourself to lead with curiosity instead of any judgment that you might have about what's going to happen. And lastly, have fun. So I hope that all of these things are possible for you. So here's where we're going to start. There's a fact that we do get stuck when we're solving problems, right? And I kind of categorize these in a couple different ways. So oftentimes, stuck looks like I have too many options. There's too many different paths that I can take, and I don't know what the right choice is. And that can create overwhelm and paralysis. Another way that we can get stuck is if we feel like there's only one option. You've already decided that this is the path that you have to walk on, and you are feeling really hesitant to do so. You don't love this one option, but you think it's the only way. That's a very different version of stuck. And lastly, maybe you're having trouble defining the problem. So sometimes we get stuck because we feel like a problem exists, but we don't really know what it is or how to articulate it. And then it's really hard to know how to move forward because, again, we don't have a really good definition of where we are now. So getting unstuck really starts with how we define the problem. So it matters so much how we do this because how we define the problem shapes the solutions that we see. And oftentimes, again, we're stuck because we're not asking the right questions. And one of my favorite quotes that's attributed to Einstein is he says, if I had 60 minutes to solve a problem, I would spend 55 minutes defining it and 5 minutes actually solving it. So that really talks to, again, how important it is to know and be able to name what we're up against. And this is a little image that I pulled out of Harvard Business Review. And it really talks about how we can frame problems in different ways in order to find really different solutions. So if we frame the problem as the elevator is too slow, the types of solutions that we might generate are all going to be around making the elevator move faster, right? It's too slow, so therefore I have to make it faster. I have to make it less slow. And so as we get into solutioning, the options that are on the table is, again, we could put in a new motor. We could install a new lift. We could put in another elevator. We could do all of these things, and those solutions would make the elevator faster, right? But if we take a moment to really get curious about the problem itself, perhaps there's opportunities for us to reframe the problem. So in this instance, really, it's not that the elevator is too slow, or perhaps it is, but we can reframe that as it's really annoying to have to wait for an elevator, right? I hate when I have somewhere to be and I'm ready to go and I'm stuck here waiting. So if we take that as a problem statement, how we solution it is, again, maybe I can make the wait feel shorter. And how do we do that? And this is a commonly deployed solution today, but they put up mirrors. They play music. They install things around the elevator to trick our brain to be busy so that we're not sitting here thinking, "Oh my goodness, this elevator is so slow." So the different ways that you solve the problem, the wait is annoying, could be way different than the way that you solve the problem the elevator is too slow. And notice, even in this example, if I operate off the elevator being too slow, installing a new elevator, upgrading the motor, those are solutions that are probably going to cost me a bit of money and take a bit of time. But if I'm able to reframe the problem as like, I have an annoying wait, putting up a mirror, playing music, installing something interactive nearby, at least the way that I interpret that, those are easier solutions to implement. So, step one, again, is just understanding what is the problem and is the problem actually what I believe it is today? So, in our session today, we're going to talk about divergence and convergence. Divergence is blasting out. So, it's creating choices, it's being at a point of, I have one and I want to have many. And convergence is the opposite. So we've got a lot of opportunities and we need to make choices. We need to create action. We need to figure out, of all of these different paths that I could walk, what do I want to walk? And so as you're problem solving, I want to invite you to put these different things on, or to just recognize, again, what version of stuck are you, and use the different tools that we're going to talk about today to move forward when things feel hard. And one of my favorite quotes, my friend says this all of the time, but when you change the way that you look at things, the things you look at change. So again, this is all about just choosing a different perspective. So again, when you're stuck, it might just mean you need a different tool. It might just mean you need to turn around and take a different path. So stuck is a very relative term, and we don't have to ever be stuck. So we're going to go through some tools today that are going to help us do this convergent and divergent thinking. So when we play with diverging and creating choices, I'm going to talk to you about a couple of my favorite brainstorming activities that give us more options than just your traditional, I'm going to sit here with a piece of paper and think about it. And then on the convergent side, I'm going to show you a couple of my favorite tools that take many and create few. What I love about this is, again, it's a process that you can follow. There's really no harm. So you can think that, hey, I'm stuck. I better come up with more ideas. I better select my idea. And really, the opportunity is to just play and recognize I can do something different and I can create a different result with where I'm at. So, how we're going to play with this today is, again, we're hiking and there's a rock in our path and there's a destination and we really want to get there. We want to be on that mountaintop and we want to be able to celebrate the wins. But today it's impossible to move because there's an obstacle. So, we are going to explore these different tools, kind of using this rock scenario to find different ways of thinking about how we can move forward. So again, starting with divergent thinking. So what this is it's a practice of expanding the field of possibilities. So we are going to brainstorm, we are going to generate a lot of ideas. And one of the rules of brainstorming is you never get to be wrong. It actually stifles our creativity when we bring judgment into the room. So we really want to focus on creating an environment where we can truly just not be wrong and where we can play. So, good times to think about using divergent thinking is once you've defined the problem. Now what, right? When you're stuck and you need more options. And this is what we're talking about. And again, early in the process before you're deciding how you're going to move forward. And so I alluded to this, but when we're thinking divergently, the mindset that we want to adopt is really curiosity. So that's why I love that when we did that word bubble, so many folks said curiosity was what was with them now in staring at an obstacle in the path. Quantity over quality. When we are brainstorming, again, we want lots of options. We're not talking about the best of the best. We're talking about like, give me something to prove to myself that I've got options here. And playful and open and yes and. So this is all the fundamentals of brainstorming, but again, you don't get to be wrong in this space. This is about generative energy and opening the door to new possibilities. So, 7 ways brainstorming. Yes, I will try to talk a little slower, Diane. 7 ways brainstorming is one tool where, again, we get to think differently about how we're brainstorming in order to create new opportunities. So, what we do is we align on the problem. The problem is there is a boulder in my path. We align on boundaries. So perhaps we have, some tools in our backpack. Perhaps we have other people that we can rely on. So it's really just understanding what resources do I have available to me in order to solve the problem. And then you can break into teams. You can always do this by yourself as well. But the idea is to define the problem, understand what you're working with, and then actually just to do the brainstorming. So, in the instance of 7 ways, what we want to do is we want to intentionally put on different hats to help us expand our perspective. So, if we are trying to get around this crazy rock that's in our path, one of the hats that I might put on is Steve Jobs. How can I think, what would Steve Jobs do if he was faced with this obstacle? What would a 5-year-old do if they were faced with this obstacle? What would a team of NASA scientists do if they were faced with this obstacle? What would the world's best rock climber do? So it's really just allowing yourself to play from different perspectives so that when it becomes hard to brainstorm from your own experience, you can intentionally shift into the experience of someone else to generate more ideas. Amazing. So again, we're part of a team of hikers. We've come across an obstacle in our path and we need to get creative to move up the mountain. One of the activities that I do with teams just to really allow them to sink into this is I kind of confine the resources and I tell them how I'm defining success. So this is another really good example that you can use just to get you and your team practicing on what does this thinking look and feel like. It's just a simulation to say, we're going to try it. So for example, team 1, you have to get over the rock and you have 6 months, a team of engineers and designers. And I'm saying that success is the most innovative solution that you can come up with, right? I'm assuming you guys can imagine how you might think about solving the problem looking through that lens. An alternative is you've got 10 people and your hiking backpack, right? Very different constraints and resources than what you have in that first example. And success for this group is speed. So again, you're already kind of narrowing to, okay, I know what I have and I know that I'm going to win if I'm fastest. And so how you generate ideas from that place looks a little bit different. And then this third arbitrary example that I'm giving, it's just you and you have $5,000 and this free hardware store, or a hardware store just magically appears on the mountain to serve you, right? So in this example, I might say that you're being measured by speed and cost of the solution. Okay. So again, I offer this just because how we frame the problem matters, right? How we define the problem, how we understand what am I working with right now? Like what do I have right now? Not what do I wish I had, but what do I actually have? And what does success look like? And from there, you have a platform to do this brainstorming and really create some amazing ideas that will serve you in solving the problem. All right. Another form of brainstorming is free association. So this is a little bit sillier. If you guys have ever experienced improv, that's kind of they play a game in improv called Yes and this is something very close to that. So it's playful. We generate ideas very quick, and we're really looking for unexpected connections in the ideas that are popping up. So we might start with a word or a phrase related to that problem, and we kind of piggyback on that until we find something interesting that we want to play with. So, just to kind of give you guys a little bit of a summary of these two things and how they look the same and how they look different. When we're talking about 7 ways, we're looking for at least 7 different ways to get past it, wearing different hats, right? So the examples could be dig a tunnel, build a ramp, break it up into smaller pieces, call a helicopter. With free association, it's a little bit less specific solution focused, where you're really looking to just generate like a lot of wild creativity. And again, there's no judgment. So, an example flow that I have written out here is boulder, heavy. Again, what do you think about when you hear the word heavy? I think about lifting in the gym. The gym makes me think about strength. Strength makes me think about teamwork. And so, from this place, the idea is that you will start finding ideas and you will start finding solutions that you otherwise might not have just by playing with yourself or by playing with others. So I would always say when you're looking for a tactical solution to a well-defined problem, 7 ways is my go-to. I love it. I use it with teams all of the time. If you're looking just to kind of like get unstuck in your own thinking or experience more play or experience more creativity, free association is a really good thing to try. So again, I think I just said this, but when to use each. 7 ways is when you have a KPI. It pushes you to go behind the obvious and it allows you to generate creativity, but still there's a little bit of structure. And in free association, you don't really have that structure. It's more unconstrained, it's a little bit more wild, it's more unexpected, and it's a little bit more surprising. Okay, amazing. So we've got lots of ideas. But which one makes sense? So those are the tools that I wanted to show you that are really talking about divergence, right? Here is, I don't know what options I have. Oh, I've diverged. I've done one of these brainstorming activities, and now I have a lot of different options, and I don't know which one to choose. So that's where we're going to look to the other set of tools that I want to introduce you guys to. And that's tools that are going to help you converge and make a decision. So, convergent thinking in comparison to divergent thinking. So, this is all about narrowing our options to find the best path forward. So, we evaluate ideas against different criteria and we're kind of down selecting to answer the question, what am I going to do now? Again, I need to take an action and I need help figuring out which action I'm going to take. So, this is really good to use after brainstorming, right? When it's time to prioritize and make a decision and before taking an action. So oftentimes we might just have, again, back to the elevator example, is the elevator's too slow? Someone says, great, let's buy a second elevator. Boom, done. Oftentimes before you implement that action, it can be really valuable just to do a mini cycle of this type of brain activity so that you can make sure that the solution you're about to put in place is really going to solve the problem and is the right solution to solve the problem based on, again, what you have available to work with. So when we're converging, the mindset that we're looking for is clarity over curiosity. We always want curiosity to be present, but we really want to be clear about our definition of success. We're going to focus on what's feasible and what's impactful. And this is a little bit more disciplined and structured. So this is more of what I would say is like that formal problem solving hat is instead of being wide, now I'm going deep. And it's all about choosing the best way forward with confidence. Just seeing the chat. I do believe this is going to be available afterwards, and Andy can confirm that. So we'll make sure to get you guys an answer. So, one of my favorite tools from a convergence perspective is something called an impact and effort matrix. So, there's kind of a lot of words on this slide, but essentially, what you're going to do, we've got all of these different ideas now of how we can go around this boulder. Everything from chartering a helicopter to digging a hole to, getting a bunch of bulldozers and making the rock smaller. Amazing. How do we know which one we're going to choose? When we use an impact effort matrix, this is a really quick and easy tool to generally weed out the good ideas from the less good ideas. And I say less good, I'm not saying any idea is a bad idea, but again, like we want to make sure that like it's reasonable based on the type of problem that we're looking to solve. So what you're going to do is you're going to have your different ideas. So idea number one is I'm going to charter a helicopter. I am asking myself, how impactful is this? And when you talk about impact, it's impact towards actually solving the problem. So in this instance, it would be, is this actually going to get me on the other side of the boulder? So chartering a helicopter, probably high impact, right? It's a pretty high likelihood that doing so is going to help us to solve the problem. Once we understand impact, we're going to ask about the effort. So again, on a scale of like low effort, this is very, very easy to do versus high effort, this is a little bit more challenging to do. Where would chartering a helicopter land? So that's what you're going to go through, that same kind of thought process for all of the different solutions that you brainstormed. So perhaps for me, chartering a helicopter is, I mean, it's pretty high impact. I trust that it's going to solve the problem, but it's probably kind of high effort. I mean, I don't know anyone with a helicopter, so I'd have to figure that out, but maybe somewhere in the middle here. If we say an alternative solution is digging under the boulder, I mean, I probably would say that's a little bit lower impact. I'm not super certain that's going to work, and I'm not going to end up with a boulder on my head. And I actually feel like that's kind of more effort, at least from my perspective, than calling someone for a helicopter ride. So again, it's just about, again, whether it's yourself, whether it's your team, it's really working through, I've got a bunch of different things. Help me figure out kind of like what's in the zone, what's like the good ideas versus like what's maybe the stuff that's a little bit too outrageous for me to apply. Okay, impact effort. Now I'm going to talk to you about the Pew Matrix. The Pew Matrix, so we're going to go through this in detail. It feels like it's a little bit more technical, but I promise, like I will answer questions and we will give you an example that is very real and helps you understand this tool. So the idea of a Pew Matrix is that this is a tool where you can figure out what are the really important criteria that I want to assess when I'm making this decision. Then we are going to look at all of our options of ways that we can move forward, and we are going to physically score each of those options based on what's important so that we have a single way that we believe we should be moving forward. So bear with me, and we will definitely go into this in a good amount of detail for you. So before I dive into the Pew Matrix in detail, I want to just again offer there's two different tools. When do I use what? So both are really amazing tools for supporting you in making decisions. They shine a little bit at different parts of the process. So the impact and effort matrix is going to be a very fast process, and it's a very kind of easy big funnel that you're taking many to maybe few. It is often difficult to go into the impact effort and have there be one clear winner. What you're normally going to see is that you've got like 4 or 5 things that landed in the green zone, and you now have to continue to down select and say, of these 4 or 5 good ideas that I had that are high impact and low effort, still, how do I pick the right one? The Pew Matrix is really going to help you do that. So it is best for in-depth comparison. And again, you almost always walk out with one clear winner that you can use to really move forward. Okay, so here's the Pew Matrix. We're going to walk through it. I want to see questions popping up if you have them. I am happy to say these things multiple times to make sure that you are all following. So, in this example, we are going to talk about where we want to go for dinner. It's a little bit more accessible than the rock. So, the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to figure out what is the criteria that matters to us. So, you'll see along the top here, I have food quality, price, distance, and ambiance. This is me saying when I decide where I want to go to eat, when I'm looking to solve the problem of what restaurant should I choose, what's important to me is food quality, price, the distance from my house, and the restaurant ambiance. Establish those first. Decide with yourself or with your team what is important about solving this problem, what criteria. Then I want you to rank those things. So if you have 5 different criteria, your biggest one is going to be weighted out of 5. And this is really, again, just saying of all of these things that I find to be important for deciding where I want to eat dinner, the most important to me is food quality. The second most important is price, then it's distance, and then it's ambiance, right? So you are getting very clear whether it's with yourself or whether it's with your team. Here's what's important to me, and I think this thing is more important than this thing. I promise you guys, just going through this amount of this exercise will change the way that you and your team are thinking about your problem because asking those deeper questions around what is success and what is most success versus least success will really help you build clarity and confidence to move forward. So, step one, what are the different criteria and how do you weight them? Okay, now that we have criteria and weight, what we're going to do is for each of these different criteria, we're going to establish a scale of what is good and what is bad. So for food quality, a 1 out of 5 is this is not good food, right? A 5 out of 5 is this is amazing food. And then a 3 is like it's average, right? So we have a scale to help us understand what food quality is. Whoops. Then price, again, on a scale of 1 to 5. So 1 in terms of prices, this is very expensive. 5 in terms of prices, this is a great deal. So again, we're taking the criteria, we're saying this is the importance of this criteria, and I now have a way to assess what's a 1 versus what's a 5 and everything in between. Same with distance, we're establishing our scale, and same with ambiance. Okay? Now we are ready to start actually funneling our different solutions that we brainstormed through this matrix. So, our first idea of where we could have dinner is McDonald's. So, I'm going to evaluate McDonald's on all of these different criteria using the scale that we just set. So, for a food quality, again, don't judge me. This is just, example, but I feel like McDonald's is kind of a meh option. Like if I'm going to go to dinner, I kind of want to do something a little different from that from a food quality perspective. So, I rate McDonald's a 2 out of 5 in terms of food quality. I would rate McDonald's a 5 out of 5 in terms of price. It's a good deal. You get what you need, right? I would say it's a 5 out of 5 in that it's very close. I'm sure we can all say there's one down the street. And then as far as ambiance again, I'm gonna give it a 2 because it's kind of loud. It's not really that clean. It's just really not my jam. So we are able to, again, and if we're doing this together, we're having these conversations. Perhaps I think it's a 2, perhaps you think it's a 5. So inherently, you're being able to work through the differences and come to a consensus so that you're evaluating things on similar criteria. Okay, now we have to do math, guys. So what we're going to do is we're going to take the weight of the criteria. So for food quality, this is the most important criteria to me. It gets a weight of 4 out of 4. And I'm saying that I rate McDonald's as a 2. So I'm taking 4 times 2, and my food quality score is an 8. Okay. For price, this is weighted as a 3. and I gave it a 5 out of 5 for my rating. So it's 3 times 5. So your price score is a 15. For your distance, again, the 2 drops down and the 5 comes over, and you get a score there. And the same with the ambiance. And then what you're going to do is you're going to add all of those together. So the 8 from food quality, the 15 from price, the 10 from distance, and the 2 from ambiance are going to give me a score, and it's 35, right? So I have a quantifiable score that helps to tell me this, like where McDonald's lands in service of the other options. So what we're going to do here, and I'm just going to kind of expand it, but let's say I'm evaluating 3 restaurants total using this matrix. I've got the 2 other ones that I popped in. You can see how I assessed every one of the different options against those same criteria using that same scale. And my 3 options, McDonald's had a score of 35, Sanford had a score of 28, and Steve's Bar had a score of 40. So, based on the numbers, based on the criteria, it is very obvious to me that Steve's Bar is the right choice. Okay. And this is again where like there's always nuance. You can always say, "Oh wow, I really didn't think that." And you can go back and you can look at your math and you can evaluate, but that's essentially what we're looking to do. And if you don't have that much separation in your numbers, perhaps you can add another criteria. Perhaps you need to widen your scale. So there's ways of creating separation if you don't have them. But really, most of the time when I've done this, if you're doing it with enough options, you will have a clear winner that you can then move forward with. So let me, I'm seeing some questions, so let me take a look quick. Um, yes, correct. So Pedro asked a little bit, sorry, I'm reading and thinking. Pedro asked about, is it applicable for urgent and non-urgent problems? So a car accident versus a slow elevator. Um, I don't think so. So as a problem solver, like I am not going to look at a car accident in the same way that I'm going to look at something where I've got a tremendous amount of time to assess what I need to do now. I think, we respond to those types of problems more from adrenaline, and it's more about band-aiding the solution or fixing the problem as it stands right now. These tools are really great for A, building your brain to think differently about approaching problems, and best done when you have a little bit of space to play with them. So they're really about offering you a shift in perspective. And I would not say that you need to do a Pew matrix to figure out how do I respond to this accident. What I would say is, if you're someone who responds to car accidents, let's say this is, a part of a profession, you could do a Pew matrix after the fact to say, how could we have responded different? And so perhaps the problem is our response rate was too slow. Perhaps the problem is like we've got a higher mortality rate than we're interested in. You could brainstorm, what can we do to fix that? What can we do to actually improve that outcome? And you could work through that, not live when you're having to just solve the problem, but again, as an aftermath, so you're understanding, how can I do this differently moving forward? Alyssa asked how many columns you need to make this effective. Oops, I'm sorry. It really doesn't matter. Typically, what I would say is, again, the fewer columns you use, the closer the scores are going to be. So if you have 3 criteria that you're evaluating against, you're just giving yourself a smaller denominator as you do the math. I like to typically use 4 or 5. But again, if you're a technical team solving a really insane problem and you're spending a day figuring out, I've got $1 million to invest and I'm trying to figure out what is the right solution, you can also use 7 different criteria. So it kind of is context dependent, but really that's part of like defining what is the criteria and what does success look like for you. So great. And if I'm not answering your questions, if you guys have follow-ups, please pop them back up. Jennifer just says that going through this process for a restaurant, you wouldn't be in the mood to go out to eat. I totally agree. I don't use this when I'm figuring out what I want to eat. It's more about just like showing the example. But yes, it is a little cumbersome. And when you approach it with like, "Ooh, this is going to be interesting," like I think my intuition tells me one thing, but I wonder what's real. It's kind of fun to see the difference of that. And Alyssa, I'm glad that served you to have the reflect and improve as a way to use these. Sorry, can we use this framework for life-changing decisions on the long term, like career transition, where new options emerge on the long term, so it has to be dynamic? So I haven't used it like that before, but I definitely can see there being an application like that. Um, just as my brain digests that question, like perhaps what you could do, I see the X matrix almost being like your values as a person. So perhaps you know that curiosity is a value and family is a value and security is a value. And so you can use this to ask yourself when you have hard decisions to make, how does this align with my values? And say that I don't make a decision where the score is less than X. So the framework and what's important to me here is that you're understanding the thinking process behind understanding criteria, understanding the problem, and evaluating what comes next. But I think that you could use it. I definitely think you could use it in that way. And I'd be happy to play with you and brainstorm more on what that could look like. Yeah, amazing. Thank you guys so much for the really thoughtful questions. So just to summarize where we're at with the Pew Matrix, I feel like I'm beating a horse at this point, but define the criteria first. I should say, first define the problem, right? Make sure you've got some good brainstorm stuff to actually evaluate. Then define the criteria of what's important. Then you're going to establish that baseline. So, what does a one look like versus what of a five? You're going to create the matrix. You're going to score it. And then you're going to summarize and say, all right, cool. What am I going to do now? So, looks big and clunky and technical. I love this tool, you guys. I love it so much. It's so high impact. It creates so much clarity when you're using, excuse me, when you're using it with a team. Because again, just like flushing out all of those different nuances are really, really high impact to just like staying aligned as you move forward together. Amazing. So, what I would love you to do is based on everything we've talked about. We talked about a couple different tools and ways that we can brainstorm and diverge. We talked about converging, right? I've got so many options. I need to figure out what I want to do now. So I guess I'm curious when you come back to like, you did the visualization at the top of the hour, and there was an obstacle in your path. Now that we've kind of talked about these things, what do you need to do to move past your personal obstacle? Is it diverge or is it converge? I'm going to sit here patiently. I always wish that I played Jeopardy music when I did this because I think it would just be fun to like hear that while the answers are coming in. But thank you. Yeah. So people are still coming in, but it seems like converge, right? It seems like you have options, and you need to just figure out what are you going to do. And yeah, we've got more popping in, so I'll be patient with the Slido. And Diane, if you can, I'd love to have you type another sentence about not knowing, and what's behind that? What's the confusion that you're having? Great. So converge. Converge is the winner to brainstorm and to believe that there are more possibilities than we could have ever imagined. And Diane, again, converge is I need to think of more options. I don't see a path right now. I'm not sure how I can move forward. I need to see that there's a lot of possibility accessible. And then again, that converge is I have a lot of options and I need to figure out what I'm going to do. So I could take this new job, I could be a stay-at-home mom, I could start my own company. I have a lot of things I could do, and I'm not sure what I should pick. So that's kind of how to think about those two high level. Yeah. And yes, it of course can be both. Like that's the journey of this is one version of stuck often just moves us to a different version of stuck, but it's progress, right? So if you have a problem, the first thing you might need to do is figure out, okay, how can I look at this problem differently? First, I'm going to come up with 10 other ways that I can think about this problem to help me just decide how do I want to articulate it. Great. Now I've got all these different ideas of what I could do. And crap, I need to move forward. So I better select something. I better go try. I'm going to converge and I'm going to decide, I'm going to go do this thing. Okay, I did this thing. Now what am I supposed to do? I don't have another idea. I'm feeling really stuck. I guess I could brainstorm. I guess I could diverge and I could come up with a bunch of options again. So problem solving to me is just a flow of these different things. I teach like Six Sigma or DreamBank. So there's these really technical containers for problem solving, but whether you're defining the problem, whether you're measuring the problem, whether you're looking at solutions, whether you're implementing solution, divergent and convergent thinking serve you throughout the process. So, really, I want you to think about these in terms of, again, just tools to help you get unstuck. So, whenever you're feeling stuck, you can just ask yourself, what type of stuck am I feeling? Am I stuck because I have too many options and I don't know what's right? Or am I stuck because I don't have enough options? I need more information. And from there, I'm hoping that you can move forward just a little bit better than before. Yeah, thank you so much for sharing, everyone. So again, this is what we were just talking about, but problem solving is a cycle. So you can do this as many times as you need, but we're gonna generate options. We're gonna believe that we can do hard things. There's a ton of possibility in the world, and the world's our oyster, right? Let's go get it, and then we're gonna choose. We're gonna be action oriented. We are going to not live in indecision land forever. It is amazing to brainstorm. It is amazing to recognize that there are endless possibilities for us. But at some point, we actually have to go do the thing, right? And that's where convergence really helps us is I've got all these ideas, but now I need to generate a result. Let's go. Let's converge and let's try something that we have confidence in, right? And through these methods of converging, I want you to feel like you have confidence in knowing that the thing that you're going to try, you believe is going to get you somewhere, right? And I want you to give yourselves permission to think about it as a scientist too. I hypothesize that if I dig a hole under this rock, I am going to get to the other side. That's with the best of the information that I have. I understand the problem. I did my brainstorming, I did my convergence, and I believe that the next step is that I'm going to dig a hole under this rock. Great, go dig the hole. And then ask yourself, did it work? Did what I think was going to happen actually happen? Did I make it to the other side of the rock? Yes or no? And if no, interesting. Now what do you want to do? You've got a ton of other brainstorm ideas that you just created. So what's the next one that you're going to pick to again move yourself forward? So all of this and like my personal approach to problem solving is it's important to get the answer sometimes, but it's also really important to just build the skills of thinking differently, right? So of thinking critically, of recognizing that there are tools that I can use and I don't get stuck because I know what to do to move forward. And then we repeat as needed. So we expand and we do this again and again and again. And it becomes second nature for us to recognize, ooh, that's the feeling of stuck. That's the feeling of stuck when I have 100 things spinning on my to-do list and I don't know what to do. I understand what my brain needs to go through to unlock me and to get me moving forward, right? So you'll start to recognize your own patterns and you'll start to feel more empowered to manage yourself and maybe your team in a really different way. Yeah. And Tim Sorensen, thank you for sharing. I am a lean person by trade. So a lot of where this comes from is I learned this in Kaizen, which is lean thinking and problem solving, right? So it is all about, again, thinking and try storming. So when we're thinking about problem solving and when we're thinking about creating a culture of problem solvers, right? So it's one thing to solve ourselves. It's other things to actually like teach other people and create containers where really good problem solving exists. And in order to do that, you have to be able to think, you have to be able to generate, and you have to be able to go try. You can't get stuck in the generative idea. You have to go put it out in the universe, get the feedback, run the experiment, and allow yourself to believe that it's going to give you more information to move forward. And that's just the cycle that we live in. And it's amazing when we can get there. Okay. So again, I invite you just to have a moment. Like I'm assuming that you're thinking of this stuff just based on the content, but based on a real challenge that you're facing right now. Again, I invite you to just jot down a couple notes if you haven't already about where might it serve you to do some brainstorming and where might it serve you in your life to make a decision. And again, I'm gonna be quiet for just 2 minutes, and I really just want you to sink into this question and see if you can set yourself up to do something. Like commit to doing something after this session to help you move forward. Okay? So I'll give you 2 minutes to reflect, and then we'll answer the rest of the questions you guys have. Okay. Amazing. If you need more time, please give yourself the gift of that additional time when we're off the call. I really want that for you so that this can sink in and you can do what you need to do to move forward. What we covered today, defining the problem. So sometimes the problem isn't the problem and how important it is to start there. Divergent thinking, brainstorming, and how important that is to support us in moving forward. Again, that convergent thinking piece, and really, again, just the cycle. So, if you took nothing else, I hope that you just recognize that, no matter what type of stuck you're feeling, there is a way that you can move forward and just allow yourself to experiment with what that could look like. One of my favorite things to tell myself and my friends and my daughter and people in my life is you already have everything that you need. You already have everything that you need. So sometimes it's just remembering that and giving yourself permission to just try. So I hope that you offer that to yourselves. Um, I would like to celebrate you all for showing up today, for investing in yourself, for sharing with me, for practicing maybe something that's new. Maybe you've heard of this before, but you did it. And that is a win. So I hope that you pat yourself on the back and recognize that you just invested in yourself. And that's really amazing. So, one other question that I'll leave you with, and maybe you reflected on this as you thought about your own problem, but what is one step that you can take today or this week to move past your own boulder? Decide. You have the tools, you have tactics to help you get around. So, do it. And if you'd like to share for accountability, I am always so here for it. So, thank you so much for your presence today, for all of your amazing questions. If you have any other questions, I would love to answer them. And I'm so grateful for the time to be with you all. So feel free to connect with me. I'd love to hear from you. Tell me about how this is showing up in your life, and let's be friends. So again, I really appreciate you, and I'll hang out for questions.
Thank you so much for that, Sarah. Such a wonderful presentation. Lots of nuggets and takeaways for sure in that. We'll give it a few more moments here as people go ahead and type their questions. One question I have for you, though, here at the American Family Insurance Dream Bank, we are a community that is built up of fellow fearless dreamers. We always like to ask our presenters, what's one piece of advice that you have for someone who is actively pursuing a dream right now?
Mm. I'm going to come back to what I just said, and that's that you already have everything that you need. So, as a fellow dreamer and someone who's always in active pursuit, I spent a lot of my life believing that the answers were with other people or out there somewhere. And I went through my own journey of coaching, and I remember talking to my coach and saying, I feel trapped. I'm in a cage. And if someone would just let me out, you would have no idea what kind of results I could create. And my coach said to me, Sarah, who's holding the key? And the answer was me, right? So it's you have everything that you need, whether that's permission, whether that's tools, whether it's a support system. And if you don't, you have the key. So go and get it. So it's just that energy from one dreamer to another is like, what if you already have everything you need?
I love that. I love that. Couple last housekeeping items. This event is being recorded and it will be shared to the email address in which you used to register. So keep an eye out for that. And then also head over to our website, which is amfam.com/dreambank to get a good, concise list of all of our upcoming virtual and in-person events as well. With that being said, it looks like those are all the questions that have come in at this time. So we will go ahead and cap it there. Thank you all for taking time to join us here. Thank you, Sarah, for putting together such a wonderful presentation. And we will see you all next time. Take care.
Thank you, everyone.